Summit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the 10th Emerging India series presented by ICICI Bank and CNBC TV18, where we put the spotlight on the contribution of the SME sector to the Indian economy. Now, as a build-up to the Emerging India Awards, we're bringing on board some industry stalwarts and asking them to draw on their expertise and experience to discuss the challenges faced by SMEs in India. And on this week's episode, we're looking at the factors that SMEs need to consider to see whether a business model is or can be sustainable.
What is a sustainable business model for an SME? What are some of the factors that contribute to the sustainability of such a model? A commercially viable business model needs to be future-ready to ride out the downturns in a developing economy by not just matching a thriving economy but also delivering on social progress within environmental limits. The more important questions for SMEs in India are what is the timeline for the return on their investment and how best can they manage the triple bottom line.
This week on the Emerging India series, we bring on board the founder and group CEO of MakeMyTrip.com, Kalra, and talk to him about the different aspects of business sustainability and their impact on SMEs in India.
Kalra founded MakeMyTrip.com in 2000. The idea of MakeMyTrip was nurtured from the seed of a single great idea to empower the traveller. Today, it is the largest online travel company that offers travellers the convenience of quick online travel bookings at competitive prices and has become the preferred choice of millions of travellers in India.
I think business sustainability for me is the company, the brand surviving and staying durable despite changes in people, despite changing in business environment, despite changes in technology. And that, I think, at the heart and core of it is going to be the processes that the company has built. Today, I think it's easy to say that Google is going to be a durable company. Facebook is going to be a durable company. So I can tell you in the initial years, people were wondering, would they survive or not? So I think the real test of these companies is going to be as they go forward.
Speaking to us this week about the need for business sustainability for Indian SMEs is the CEO and co-founder of TravelKhana.com, Pushpinder Singh.
A mechanical engineer by profession, Pushpinder Singh was bitten by the entrepreneurial bug when he realized the growth potential of an underserved segment.
Travel as a need has really been fulfilled very well by several OTAs. But there is a requirement that during the travel, a person needs so many things and really wanted to actually fulfill on that. We have about 30 million people who travel every day in railways, and they don't really get access to decent food while traveling, and this was a very big problem. And most of us basically are used to that, where our mothers cook paratha and achar or something like that. It's kind of a make-do kind of arrangement. So people don't have access to decent food. The food is, whatever is available is very, very low quality. People don't have any trust on that.
Started in 2012, TravelKhana.com is a one-of-its-kind startup that uses technology to help passengers on trains access good, hygienic food just as they ordered at railway stations of their choice.
We are very innovative as a company. TravelKhana is itself an innovation. And the other thing that we are really bringing is a kind of a food delivery model which is actually applies to people who are living in the city, in large cities. And it's a kind of a very high repeat rate model that we are really working on.
Covering routes in more than 500 cities, the company's operations are expanding exponentially. But like most startups and new ventures, the sustainability of a business model is a huge concern for entrepreneurs like Pushpinder.
In terms of business sustainability, the biggest issue that I faced was cash flow. And we actually had times where we did not have enough cash. We also came to a point where we were actually thinking of wrapping up.
On that note, it's time for a short break. On the other side, I'm in conversation with Kalra, the founder and group CEO of MakeMyTrip.com. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Emerging India series. I'm now in conversation with Deep Kalra of MakeMyTrip.com. Welcome to the show, Deep.
Thank you.
The MakeMyTrip.com story is an amazing one, but you've had your ups and downs as well. What are the factors that they need to consider to make sure that, they remain sustainable? I'm talking currently from the economics point of view.
I think at 15 and a half years, we're in a good position to talk about that. So I think the first thing is for the entrepreneur, the startup team, the founders, to really be very clear about what they want from their business. I think the new crop of entrepreneurs are fantastic. They're much, much smarter than they were a decade ago. They're still a little confused. Are they coming in for building a business in the long term, building a brand for the long term? Or are they coming in to build something, perhaps sell it off, build another thing? So the classical serial entrepreneur, which is probably what we've learned from the West, so Silicon Valley kind of model. So I think it's really important that you're clear. So I think strategy will flow if there's clarity in the mind. So that's the first step. The next step, coming to economics, I think you cannot overemphasize the value of unit economics. Yes, there are crazy times in the internet world, in the new age world, valuations are going where people are rubbing their eyes and saying what's going on. Crazy valuations will come and go. But fundamentally, your focus as a founder has got to be on unit economics. By unit economics, I mean what is your contribution margin on every unit that you sell extra?
Yes.
And is there inherent scalability in your business? So it's back to basics.
But when you talk about sustainability, when you talk about the economics, there are other pillars under that. So whether it's profit, planet, people. How do you balance these three P's under sustainability?
Interesting. So the third P I would have thought of, or the fourth P I would have thought of, would actually be processes.
Okay.
So I think the processes are the key thing which ensure a company is durable beyond its people. So people can come and go. Founders may not change, but people will come and go. But look around you and you see the greatest brands out there, or the greatest companies out there. So you could look at Apple on one side, a new age company, or you look at IBM or Microsoft, not so new age, but great companies. Why have they survived despite even founders going away? The company goes on because fundamentally the processes are very strong. Back home, like in India, I would say for me, one of the most inspiring companies has always been Infosys. And Infosys now has shed off finally the whole founders thing. It's gone. And they've done such great contributions to the company, but their greatest contribution has actually been the fact that the company can survive and thrive despite them.
Another thing that SMEs usually do when they want to diversify, when they want to scale up, that's a time when they need to again be on sure ground. What are some of the key things that SMEs need to keep in mind when they're looking to diversify or scale up to make sure that their business model does scale up?
Yeah, no, I think there's a time and place for everything. I think there's a time to scale and there's a time to diversify. At times I find a lot of young entrepreneurs tend to diversify too quick, which means you're actually giving up too quick. See, pivot has become a very fashionable word. And it's not a bad thing. If your model's not working, you have to be nimble. In fact, I think it's one of the foremost qualities for an entrepreneur to read the market, to be nimble and have no shame in changing the model. Still be determined. But at the same time, you have to give any new idea enough leeway, enough rope and enough time to see the light of day.
True.
If you flit, and if you flit like a butterfly, you'll probably never know it. So sometimes, and I'll give you our own example, we've gone through a lot of ups and downs. It took us a long time to establish ourselves in the non-resident Indian market, NRI market, in the US-India corridor. But when we did, we reaped the harvest. Similarly, when we came to India, met instant success with selling air tickets, but hotels took a long time to open up. If we had given up very early, we won't taste success in the hotel market. So I think you got to stay with it. In fact, frankly, when I launched in India in 2005, there were at least 19 other travel.coms. And there was just so many names out there, and not one of them exists now. There are very, very few left. So I think there's something to be said about tenacity.
Yeah.
And so I tell all entrepreneurs, hang in there a little bit more. Because there's a great value of not throwing in the towel too early, because the worst thing you can have is regret. You look back and say, oh my God, that sector boomed the moment I left it. What terrible timing. Why would you do that? Put in one more year, and that one more year things will start changing, and another year, and take it in sprints.
When we talk about valuations, which is also, you spoke about valuations earlier, but nowadays, of course, they have such billion-dollar valuations. India itself has got unicorns and things like that. Everyone's excited. There's so much energy. There's so much chatter in that field. How there are SMEs out there who would be saying and be like, oh God, why not mine? Or if not mine, all the effort that I've done is lost. What's your advice to them so that they don't lose hope? Because not every SME is meant to be a unicorn, and not every SME needs to be a unicorn. Sometimes you need to focus on different sectors.
I think you've got to see this in perspective. I think it's great to have role models. I tend to tell folks, my own colleagues, don't get carried away with valuation. Valuation is only one part of the game. Your fundamental is solve a customer problem.
All right.
Get a customer insight. What is a real problem the customer is facing? And the customer can be a company, it can be an individual. And no one's doing that today, or someone's doing it, but you can do it better. Solve that problem better than anyone. Everything else will flow. The money has to be a byproduct. The money cannot be what you're chasing. The valuation is a byproduct of that byproduct. The valuation is a byproduct of your financials, and if you're in a hot sector, you could be doing a phenomenal job in a sector which is not hot. Sadly, you won't get the valuation today, but you might get it tomorrow when it's hot.
Last Saturday, the Prime Minister launched the Startup India's initiative. You were also there. What are your thoughts on this initiative?
I had the good fortune of being asked to moderate the event, so I was very happy to open it. I said my opening statement was, when I started MakeMyTrip in 2000, I don't think, if you said I'm doing a startup, people said you're messed up. Because it really meant you're messed up and crazy, because no one did a startup, or you lost a job or something. Right. Today it's become a respectable name, and we're at the point where the government is actually providing a platform, wants to provide a launch pad. It's terrific, and I think entrepreneurs have to appreciate how game-changing this is. This is a seminal moment. This doesn't happen in many countries. Most countries will not have the government saying, we're going to support startups. Very, very, very few countries do this. Maybe Singapore, Israel, etc. Big countries don't do this. In fact, there were guys who stood up from the Western world and they said, we've never heard of this. We've been in the UK all our life. This is phenomenal. So the government, and then you got their slew of financial packages and support that they're going to do. I think it's fantastic, and it's definitely going to, I think, give life to many, many more dreams out there.
On that note, it's time for a very short break. On the other side, Deep and me are joined by the co-founder and CEO of TravelKhana.com, Pushpinder Singh. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Emerging India series. Now joining me and Deep Kalra on the episode is Pushpinder Singh. He's the co-founder and CEO at TravelKhana.com. Pushpinder, welcome to the show.
Thank
you. So we've got Deep here with us, and I'm sure you have a couple of questions for him, so fire away.
So actually, Deep, I was at one place where you were talking about how to really go from one set of like one stage to another stage, and TravelKhana is actually in that kind of a situation. One of the questions that I have is that how to actually keep the best employees, be engaged with the company and take them and transition them to the next stage. Because there may be employees who are like really good for some very startup work, but they may not be the best set of people for really organized kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, Pushpinder, it's a great question, and I'm glad that we're meeting after some time. So firstly, I'm really happy to see that your company has actually progressed and grown. I remember when I first heard the concept, and I'm telling you, wow, it's a great concept, but it's so difficult to do, was my first reaction. I think what you've proven is that it is possible, and I think what I spoke about earlier on the show was about tenacity and staying with it and keeping at it, and I think you've proven actually you're ready to do that. And clearly I know in you there's that complete passion, because you've done this by choice. So I think what's great is with TravelKhana, you actually got into a real problem the customer has, which is about, I'm on the train, I'm on my journey, but I need clean food, and I'm not necessarily happy with what is served to me because it could be too oily, too spicy, whatever. I want neat, clean food at the right price, and you got that right. Now, scaling up with people is the key challenge. I think I've learned in my 15.5-year journey, not everyone is going to be a person who can scale. So I think I've learned the hard way that there are some people who are fantastic startup guys. Well, I call them all-rounders. If you use the cricket analogy, they can do everything.
Yeah.
And in the early stage, you want people like that. If there's a job, even if it's market survey, the guy will say, I'll go and do it. As you scale up, I think the level of specialization required goes up. And not everyone is very good at specialization. Some people will stay very good at ambiguity. So when it's an ambiguous situation, they actually revel, they do well. And interestingly enough, there are some people who get freaked out with ambiguity and play that to your advantage. So I think the people who get freaked out with ambiguity, you want to give them really specialized jobs, probably get them in a little later in the game. So you are now at a scale perhaps where you need a specialist financial controller who will make sure compliance is in place. As we know, that's very, very important. Financing, you're looking to raise another round of finance. The same person can double up as semi-CFO. Today, he might just be VP Finance, Controller. So someone who's solid on that, and the rest of it, he can do the checks and balances, but he lets you do the rest of it. You start getting into a place where product and technology, you start seeing the difference. On the other hand, you want to use the guys who are completely comfortable with ambiguity in early stage for new projects. So as you get into a new thing, like you've mastered trains, but like you were just mentioning to me, now you're seeing a very interesting new use case on local trains and, Bombay being a market. Now that's something slightly different. Your all-rounder guy, your startup guy is the perfect guy for that project. You use those one or two guys for that kind of thing, whereas the guys who want now stability and they want to scale up, you use that. You also will probably need to introduce new talent. And the toughest part of it is you'll also realize some people just don't scale up and they actually get very, very, upset when new people come in.
They've reached the level, their model is great, they're doing well, but now they need to up their game to ensure that success should carry on and it shouldn't become a fall down, they shouldn't stumble.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's key. I think Travel Khana, the way I understand it, is a very ops-intensive business, but it is powered with technology. Am I right in saying that? Right. So, you want to power it with technology. You're talking about the algos you've put into place. You're heat mapping almost out there, people, where the need is there and where the service can be provided. You are algorithmically apparently going and giving more and more orders to the better performing kitchens, etc., which is fantastic, better performing vendors. I think to scale up at this stage, it sounds counterintuitive, but your unit economics will actually go into reverse mode. There will actually be a time, and hopefully it's short term, where you'll go into a negative unit economics thing, even though you built it up to a positive. And the only way to solve for that is to bridge. And to bridge that is to have enough finance which can tide you over. Because otherwise you're going to be stuck between the devil and the deep sea, where you're going to say, I want to expand. If I want to expand, I cannot maintain my unit economics. Let's say you're working at 10% profitability, it's not bad. But for every new area that you get into, you can't be at 10. So I think we've got to be very comfortable with the fact that in new age businesses, there will be a time you'll have to get into investment period. And people balk at this, but I do turn back and say, what happened in the old manufacturing businesses? You set up a plant, you took a loan, and for 5 years or 7 years or 10 years in a hotel, you were recovering your capital. It's actually the same thing, so we should not be too bothered about it. So it's imperative that you raise money. And how will you get money? By showing your transaction growth. And your transaction growth month on month is improving that metric. And your unit economics are actually getting better even if they're in the negative, in the same segment. So as you do more of trains with Indian Railways, you're getting better and better and better. But there's a new segment where obviously right now you're negative and you're trying to improve it. That's normal.
All right.
Yeah.
So
it's actually kind of related to that, is that like when as a CEO I built this business from really, from what point did I really build it and with own personal money. So sometimes it's getting difficult to actually see wastage and it's imperative. So how did you really go through that phase? And
there's a period of bootstrapping, and I can't overemphasize the value of bootstrapping. It's tremendous. It actually helps you think very, very clearly. It also really tests your resolve in your business and your belief in it. Can you put your money where your mouth is? And also of your team, people who believe in your idea and in you. So we went through a really tough period. So those next 3-4 years, from 2001 to 2004, were really hard. And then 2005, we got funding to launch in India. And I think during that period, what kept us going was dogged determination. We were just so dogged that, listen, we are onto something, and we would measure everything. So we would measure the heck out of conversion. For us, the conversion funnel is the holy grail, even today, which is how many people come to your site, how many people finally buy, but then you split it up into move to first page, move to second page, third page. That kept getting better, which kept giving me the hope that my revenue line is going to intersect my cost line. I can see it happening 2 years out, but I need money for 2 years. Now, what any good entrepreneur will do when the money is coming out of your own pocket and there were no salaries, nothing to go around, is cut the costs. So we cut the cost to the bare bone without cutting marketing.
We are basically growing, and we are at a stage that we are still not that Flipkarts and Snapdeals of the work. But when I'm hiring from the same market. And the kind of salaries and kind of emoluments that those guys are actually paying to some of these people, it's kind of unbelievable, and it's very difficult for companies at my stage to hire people, good people from the market. So have you faced a similar situation? And
no, absolutely we have. In fact, we still continue to in some sort of way, and I would be surprised if you didn't ask that question. So there are only two things you can do really. The senior folks you got to get in because you do need senior folks. You got to get in because of giving them a small slice of equity. They've got to be driven with the idea and saying if this idea does well, it scales up, whether this is an IPO company or it's a sale company, but there's a lot of value to be created, and be open. The junior level and the mid level where stock really doesn't matter, I think you've got to go non-conventional. So your hiring has got to be, forget the top institutes. I think you got to go to tier 2 schools, but you got to go to hungry people. And I am a firm believer the best and the most passionate guys for startups are actually the people who missed out because they didn't have a great day on the CAT exam. They didn't have a great day on the JEE exam, but they're equally good.
On that note, thank you so much, Deep, for your time. Thank you, Pushpinder, for coming. Well, from the entire team, thank you so much for watching the show.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.